Hi everybody! My name is Michelle the Bookworm, and in this video I'm going to be doing a critique on The Secret Garden by Frances Burnett. This was actually one of my favorite books that I have read so far. It is the 5th book that I've read for my Classic Literature Challenge, but it's the probably more like the 7th book that I've read this year. So for those of you who don't know, I'll give a little overview about what The Secret Garden is about. The Secret Garden is a progress narrative following a young girl named Mary. Mary is a 10-year-old little girl who grew up in India. Her father was stationed as a military captain, and she was a spoiled, rotten little brat. She was spoiled by her servants. Her parents kind of gave her whatever they thought she wanted, except for love, affection, and attention. And because she was so spoiled and selfish, she was kind of a very unpleasant person to be around. So, very early on in the novel, cholera breaks out and ends up killing her parents and her entire household. So she is then sent to live with her uncle, Archibald Craven, in Yorkshire at Middlethwaite Manor. So first I'd like to discuss what I liked about the book, and there was actually quite a bit that I really enjoyed about this book. First being, I really liked the character development of Mary. In the very beginning, she was a tyrant. She was ignored by her servant, absolutely miserable, to the point where her nannies just quit on a weekly basis. And she didn't even know, when she arrived at Middlethwaite Manor, she didn't even know how to dress herself, because she always had servants doing it for her. So, one of the people that I really attribute and give credit for Mary's development is her nanny, which is Martha Sowerby. When she arrives at Middlethwaite Manor, Martha is a no-nonsense kind of woman. She was not going to put up with any of Mary's antics and tantrums. She refused to cater to Mary, and she's really responsible for the beginnings of her development because she encouraged her to do things for herself. To dress herself, to not act like such a brat, and to go outside, which is being outside and being in nature is actually a huge part of this novel. When she arrived at Middlethwaite, her guardian, Archibald Craven, gave her a few weeks to adjust. So this gave her some time to go out and for once explore her environment. When she was living in India, it was too hot for her to explore and go outside. So now she has an entire moor to go out and explore in. And Martha also was the one who initially told Mary about the Secret Garden. And so this kind of sparked a sense of adventure in Mary. She had a purpose now to go out into the moor, which was to go searching for this super secretive garden that nobody really knew existed. And in search of finding this garden, Mary actually ended up finding a little bit of herself along the way. So, Martha's also really important in this narrative because she's the one who informs the reader how Mary is improving, because I feel like you as an individual don't know how well you're improving, especially in this era. So Martha kind of worked to inform the reader about Mary's progress by commenting on her weight gain, commenting on her mannerisms, commenting on just her behavior and like how much better she was doing compared to how she was in the beginning. So Mary also gives a lot of credit to her improvement to her environment, which kind of told me that the moral of this story is that you kind of are a product of your environment. So she, at this point in time, she is still stubborn, but because she is able to go out into nature and because she's actually being nurtured, she's a lot more caring and she's a lot less selfish. So in India, she was secluded. The only people she interacted with was her nannies, who changed every week. She had no consistency. She was kind of also like Colin. Colin was Craven's invalid son. He was locked up in a bedroom where the only interaction he had was like one nanny and he just, he just kind of was secluded from the outside world, and that didn't help him. So when Mary started exploring the gardens, she kind of blossomed and grew into herself. Like, I attribute it to like a flower being planted in proper soil. And this kind of ties into another really key point of this novel, is the healing power of nature. Mary explored the moor, and originally she thought it was cold and dreary and she didn't really like it because she was so used to India, but then she met the gardener, Ben Weatherstaff, and she also met Dickon Sowerby, which is Martha's son. And these are two people who helped tend the grounds, and while she was looking for the garden, she was able to explore herself and explore her surroundings and kind of come into and learn how to be a little girl instead of a bossy, unpleasant person. She learned how to play. She learned how to run and jump and learned how things grew. So this healing power of nature was actually addressed within this novel, and they called it magic. It was especially with Colin. Colin felt that there was magic in the garden, and that it was very spiritual. I won't say it's religious, but it was very spiritual, and it was something that they could control, something in their environment that they could control and that they could help grow. And I think that is so important in this novel, is that they were helping themselves grow by helping something else grow. And this ties into another topic that wasn't directly addressed within the novel, but was heavily implied, and that's the topic of mental health. Mr. Archibald Craven was deeply affected by the death of his wife, who died giving birth to Colin. So a common theme throughout this novel is how people handle grief. Craven lost his wife, and because his son had his wife's eyes, he couldn't even look at his son, and he was so scared that his son was going to end up having a crooked back like him, that he kind of overcompensated taking care of him, making sure that he did nothing but lay in bed, but he couldn't give that emotional nurturement that Colin needed because he was so grief-stricken from losing his wife. Another part of that is that the doctor kind of confirmed Craven's worry, which was the doctor said that Colin would never get better, that he needed to rest his back, otherwise he would die quicker. Basically, the doctor said that Colin was going to die. That was inevitable. That he was never going to get better, and there wasn't much he could do. So when you tell a boy that, a 10-year-old boy, he's not going to have a very happy outlook on the world. He's going to have a really dark, bleak outlook on the world. And the only thing that the nurses felt that they could do was just give him anything he wanted for the time that he was alive. And Colin was so afraid of dying that he never allowed himself to live. He just lay in bed all day looking at a picture of his mother. And I feel like as Mary tended the garden and kind of grew into herself, she encouraged Colin to participate in these mental health activities before there was such thing as mental health. So, first of all, she sets boundaries with Colin. Colin is this spoiled, rotten little brat who thinks that he can just command her to come up to him because he's used to commanding people, summoning people whenever he wants. And she's not going to have that. She's not going to be bossed around. She's sets boundaries with him and sets him straight and will not give in to his tantrums, which in the end helps Colin because it helps him learn how to interact with other human beings. And one of the biggest events that happened in this novel that really helped Colin was that Mary and Dickon took Colin out into the garden. Mary had been talking to Colin about this beautiful, wonderful garden that she'd been working on, and he really wanted to see it. So, and it was noticeable that once his mental health started increasing, once he got out of that environment of him being an invalid, a sick invalid that was going to die, he wanted to live. Once he wanted to live, his physical health started getting better. When he was discovered by Ben Weatherstaff, it was to the point where they started doing physical therapy. They were doing leg exercises, and so that he would get stronger and stronger and stronger, to the point when they were discovered by Ben Weatherstaff. Ben Weatherstaff made the mistake of calling Colin a poor cripple, and Colin just hopped right out of the chair and said, "I'm not a cripple. See? Look what I can do." And it was momentous because it was a mix between mental health and physical health that allowed him to do such a thing that nobody thought that he was going to be able to do, even himself. So at this point, Dickon and Mary continue to help Colin to walk. That is his ultimate goal, is that he wanted to run and walk and play like any other normal child. And Mary and Dickon helped him to do this through physical therapy, again, before it was really even a thing. And it was a very beautiful ending. Craven had this dream where he just felt the urge to come home, and his son literally ran into his arms. It was a very beautiful ending. So that was all of them. There was a lot more that I really liked about the story, for instance, the bird, but these are the major points that I really, really, really liked about this book. There are some things that I didn't really like about the book. Not a whole lot. For the first thing is that it was completely obvious that the Doctor was a villain. Because as soon as the boy died and Craven died, everything went to the Doctor. I kind of wonder why Colin didn't get better. Kind of benefited the doctor for Colin to die. That was never addressed, by the way. Never addressed. Another thing that I didn't like about the novel was Craven, because he completely abandoned his son because his son has his wife's eyes and looks like his wife. What a douche. I know he's a rich guy from, the 1800s, but still, abandoning your son. Gosh. And he just perpetually runs away from his grief, and that's kind of what this book is about, is not running away from your grief, but kind of embracing it and finding ways to negate it. Another thing that kind of made me feel uncomfortable, and I'm sure that this is probably just the product of its time, was that there was an obvious prejudice against India. The whole concept at the beginning of the book was that it was a horrible, dry, arid place that nobody wanted to live, especially Mary, and that she grew because of her change of environment, which implies that India isn't a good place to grow and raise a child, and I feel like there could be some racism, there could definitely be some racism going on there, and nationalism. But again, I take that with a grain of salt, because this book is older, it is a classic. It just kind of rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. So, in conclusion, this book was great. Mary had a goal. She was looking for the secret garden, and along the way, she not only found herself, but she also led others she led Colin to find himself, and to learn how to be kids again, how to play, and how to be curious, and how to watch things grow, and genuinely care about another living thing. And I think that that's something that could really be applied to today, is actually caring about living things, whether it's plants or people. So, overall, I mentioned before that this was one of my highest rated novels, and actually, this book is the only book I've given a 5 out of 5 rating to. I found very little that I disliked about this book. My biggest issue is that the doctor was obviously corrupt. But aside from that, the natural imagery was amazing. The overall idea about getting out into nature is highly applicable to today, and ways that people handle grief, and seeing and just practicing mental health activities is so important. And it was also just a really beautiful, wonderful story, and it had wonderful imagery, and maybe it's just because I love descriptions of nature, but that's basically what this entire book was about, was appreciating the beauty of nature. Anyway, yeah, it was kind of, this book actually made me a little bit more aware of some activities that I do in my own life, and how connected I am with nature, and how important being out in nature is to me. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I actually don't have a question for the end of this one. Dang it, I didn't make one. So I guess my question is, what kind of mental health activities do you do on a daily basis that kind of get you out of your own funk. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.